Let me just hear your perspective on the quarterbacks. Let's hear about Drake Maye, because really, for the most part in this process, the debates have been between Jayden Daniels and Drake Maye at number 2 and at number 3. What do you see in Drake Maye as a prospect?
Well, I think what everybody sees is the physical gifts. I mean, the big body, the big arm that can push the ball down the field. You watch every single tape, and you are going to see a few special throws on every tape that you throw up there. And they make you say, wow. And they say, if you can bottle that up and get that week in and week out, you can improve the consistency. It's easy to see why people would fall in love with him and say he's prototypical in terms of a drop-back quarterback. I know a lot of people compare him to a Justin Herbert. You definitely see the comparisons. The biggest thing for me is consistency. I know when you get to the NFL level, I watch the tape every single week, the quarterbacks that make the layups, the quarterbacks that are most consistent at doing the little things are the ones that always give their teams a chance, and that's where he's missed this past year. There were too many layups, too many throws that you just say, okay, why did he not make that throw? You have to make that throw time and time again so his technique can get away from him. There's things that can get loose when it comes to throwing the football, so it gives you pause because we all want to believe, oh, that's an easy thing to correct. Yeah, he can change his feet. He can get more stable. A guy like Josh Allen did that throughout his career, but it's not as easy as it looks. And so that to me is the one thing that gives me pause, even though I see the incredible upside that everybody else sees.
Well, look, it's well known that your path to becoming a Hall of Fame quarterback might have been the most unusual in the history of the sport. They made a movie about it. But generally speaking, we had a good debate earlier this morning here, Kurt, and I'd love to hear your perspective on it. That a guy like Drake Maye, everyone who comes on my show says to me, he needs to sit a little while. He needs to come into the league and he needs to not be thrown out there right away. They need to have a bridge quarterback and let him take some time. And then immediately the pushback comes. Patience is so rare in the NFL these days. There's so much pressure on teams, on coaches to get these guys on the field. What is your perspective on the significance, the importance, particularly for a guy like Drake Maye, of coming into the league and teams having some patience before they throw him right in the mix?
I think every quarterback should have the opportunity to be able to sit and learn what goes into being an NFL quarterback. Not just on the field, but understanding the leadership in the locker room and what it means when you go out there and you don't have success. Because so many of these guys are so used to having success, dealing with some sort of failure early on. But a lot of this is always going to come down to what the dynamic within the team is. I think there are certain guys that are made up to be able to handle that sort of failure, the struggles, the lumps early on. Eli Manning, a guy I was with in New York, I thought had a great makeup, that he didn't play well early, but you knew that wasn't going to be something that would affect him long term. So playing is always going to give you a better chance to grow in the areas that you need to grow. But any situation where you've got a veteran quarterback can have success and you can allow your young quarterback to come along and get comfortable with playing in the NFL, a la Jordan Love and what we saw from him last year, I think that is a benefit, not just for Drake Maye, but it would be a benefit for any of these guys that found themselves in that kind of situation.
It's such an interesting perspective. And Nick, I feel like it's sort of exactly what you were saying a minute ago, and yet you and I have said far more young quarterbacks in this league are ruined than developed, and this, I think, is a big part of the reason why.
Yeah, I mean, the evidence is out there. It seems pretty clear that all the best quarterbacks that we have in football are guys that not necessarily set, but came into good situations where all the pressure wasn't on them to be franchise changers. Like, those type of players don't come around often, where it's just you're so good that we drop you on any team and you change the fortunes. The important thing is to protect that very important player, which is the quarterback, and make sure you give him time to develop. The quarterback that we see now for Patrick Mahomes is the best version of Patrick Mahomes that we've seen, despite the fact that it's not the highest numbers. It's because he's added more and more things to his game, in part because he walked onto a ready-made roster and he's set for a year. So I just don't think these are coincidences. At some point, we need to accept that guys going into, or teams going into the draft thinking that they're going to find a savior at quarterback are doing it all wrong. You need to build the car before you get the driver. It seems like the evidence suggests that that's what's worked time and time again in the NFL.
All right, Kurt, we did not actually touch on the guy who we assume will go number 1 in this draft, and that's Caleb Williams. For your first QB quick read, do you believe he is the best quarterback prospect in the draft?
I do believe he's the best prospect. We've seen the most from him with the amount of time that he's played, the amount of throws that he's made. He's a natural thrower of the football, which to me is where it starts. But then you've seen everything else you want to see, the ability to play on schedule in the pocket, the ability to make those tough second-level throws down the field, and obviously the creativity outside the pocket.
And then the second question would be about immediate impact. We just talked about how it might be best for a lot of these guys to sit and wait, but we also recognize most of them are going to get thrown out onto the field. I mean, C.J. Stroud set the league on fire last season. If you had to pick one guy you think has the best chance of doing that as a rookie, which of these guys would it be?
Greeny, this is a tough one because C.J. Stroud was doing things last year that I never saw in college. He played the game differently, which I believe all of these guys will have to do. But if I'm picking one guy, I'm taking Jayden Daniels based on what we saw last year in terms of all the different things that he could do. His comfort inside the pocket, his ability to throw the ball and push the ball down the field. I think Jayden Daniels has the best opportunity, along with where I think he's going to get picked, to have that kind of impact.
What is your reaction to that? Do the Bills need to get a top-flight wide receiver, yes or no? Kurt?
Yeah, I mean, that's GM speak. Yes, you need to get a top-flight number 1 receiver. I'd like to have 2 of those. I mean, I played with all kinds of number 1s in my day, and there's something about having a guy that you know in critical situations, I can go to that guy and he's going to win. No quarterback in this league where you have so much on you and you're going to throw the football wants to go out there and wonder if they've got a guy given a big-time situation, if that guy's going to win, if that guy's going to be able to make the play. Stephon Diggs was that guy for Josh Allen that he could count on. Yes, they need to go out. If there's one out there, like their general manager said, if there's one out there to get, but they have to try the best they can to get a weapon, to get a guy for Josh Allen.
Well, we expect as many as 7 wide receivers in round 1. So there should be people available in the draft and then maybe free agent options. But again, you were around Brandon Beane a lot, Jeff Darlington. What should we take away from what he said there?
I do believe that he'll continue to scour the market, whether through the draft or free agency, because I know that he's got to value that position. You saw what happened with the Chiefs this last year. They at least had Rashee Rice to fall back on when they got that trust going between Patrick Mahomes and him. So the Bills need at least that. They need to at least find somebody in the draft that has the potential to be a number 1 wide receiver. They can't simply go into this season expecting to put the entirety of the weight on Josh Allen's shoulders, and I believe Brandon Beane absolutely knows that deep down inside.
Mike T., you've brought up many times on this show not just rookies, but also possibly looking at trades and other ways of bringing in a big target.
Yeah, and when we get past the draft in June 1st, Tre'Davious White's money comes off of their salary cap, and 2 receivers in particular, Greedy. One could be Brandon Ayuk of the 49ers. T. Higgins of the Bengals could be available.
Yeah.
And I think the other X factor to me is Dalton Kincaid. He was a guy they traded up for a year ago. He had 73 receptions. I think in the middle of the field, he would be a great complement to one of those other receivers. So when you factor in Kincaid's improvement, what they do at 28, and those 2 veteran receivers, I think by the time we get to opening day, Greeny, this could look dramatically different.
Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that we saw kind of proof of concept last year when Joe Brady took over, as they went into an offense where Dalton Kincaid was mentioned and James Cook also kind of blew up for that offense. I think that it's possible. Obviously, there's a better way to go about it, or an easier way, I guess, to go about it if you have a true number 1 receiver, which I'm sure they'll probably draft someone. But if that person doesn't pan out, I do think that between the ability to coach up their defense and their offense that we saw last year, and the talent of Josh Allen, we could see them have success and be competitive without a true number 1 receiver. And I know Patrick Mahomes is an example that we use often, but we saw Lamar Jackson do it for years without a true number 1 receiver. When you have a quarterback as good as Josh Allen, while you may not want to, or you may not be able to get the best out of him without a true number 1 receiver, all is not lost if you don't get one there in Buffalo.
Kurt, here's the way I look at it. If they don't get someone who makes a difference, then we're going to get to November, and they're going to be like 5-6, and all of the shows on your network and ours are going to be saying, what's wrong with Josh Allen? That's going to be the topic bar. It's not going to be, do they need a, why didn't they get a number one? It's going to be, what's wrong with Josh Allen? I guess that's the lot in life of the quarterback, but it feels to me, Kurt, like they're putting a lot on his shoulders.
Well, they've always put a lot on his shoulders, and it eases the burden when you do have that guy that you can just look out there and forget about everybody else and go to that guy one-on-one. We have to also remember, down the stretch last year, they ran the football really well, which was something that they really haven't done when Josh Allen has been behind center for them. So all of this can, be kind of shoved underneath the rug if you can run the football and you can do some of the things that they did down the stretch. But my worry is that, hey, when teams can focus on that and you don't have that game changer on the outside, so defenses stack the box, they play downhill, even more of that weight falls on Josh Allen. And not have a big-time difference maker on the outside, I think looms large when you look around the AFC landscape and what you're going to be asking Josh Allen to do.